I'm the presiding member for the panel this morning, and with me I have Eugene Cortaz, who's the deputy presiding member, and Jason Hick, the specialist member. And in person we have Councillor Fizzy from the City of Joondalup and Councillor Jones online. And for the City of Swan matter, we have Councillor Bowman, who's here, and Councillor Catalano, who will be online. Declare the meeting open at 9:36 and acknowledge the traditional owners and elders past and present of the land upon which we're all meeting today. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them with considering the information before them. And the meeting will be recorded and is being live streamed. Apologies from Councillor Adrian Hill from the City of Joondalup. No members on leave of absence, and minutes from previous meetings are available on the MODAP website. Turn to part B of the agenda. City of Joondalup. Seek the declaration of due consideration. Are all members familiar with the material before you for this item? Yes, thank you very much. Disclosures of interest. I have one here that was from Councillor Hill. He declared an impartiality interest in item 3.1. Councillor Hill was formerly chairperson of Burns Beach Residents Association, during which time he publicly opposed the development of a proposed childcare facility at this location. Given this, Councillor Hill has withdrawn from the meeting. Are there any other declarations of interest? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to the item. It's a childcare premises at Grand Ocean entrance. We have some presenters. I'll ask the presenters to stick to the 3 minutes, please. First presenter is Mr. Rasmussen. Mr. Rasmussen.
Thank you, panel members. Okay. Right, so yeah, my name is Lars Rasmussen. I'm the chairperson of the Burns Beach Residents Association. Given the short time allocation, I'll get straight to the point. This particular site has got a checkered history, where the proposed childcare centre is planned for, and we've provided a short presentation to highlight some of the issues, and I'll go through just the first 4 of those. Item 5 in the presentation is more of a timeline. So next. Thank you. So item 1 in the deputation here, which I'm presenting on behalf of the Burns Beach Residents Association, is around the consultation process, where over the years, this proposal has been dismissed by the residents as an unsuitable development, not in line with the plans for the suburb, and it doesn't represent community interest. And there's a long list of consultations and feedback that is in the report as well, that highlights some of the issues and impacts that we foresee this development will have. So that's the opposition as the first point. The second point is around traffic safety. Given that this proposed development is at a very key location of the suburb, where there's a lot of traffic coming in and out. It's a feeder road into Burns Beach, and one of the few feeder roads that we have into our suburb. We foresee quite a number of traffic safety issues. We see the parking being a challenge. We see risk around parking at Bengalore Park adjacent to the childcare centre, crossing a very busy road of Grand Ocean entrance. and Bruley Lane as well. I understand there are some changes proposed here as well to that access, but certainly that will be a point of congestion in terms of traffic. Item 3. The coffee window, which is seems tokenistic to put in. I think trying to meet the requirements of a commercial precinct with very limited opening hours. We certainly see that's just a way of getting the approval in place rather than actually serving the genuine purpose of a commercial precinct and something that serves the wider community in terms of a shop. So that opportunity has been missed. And this site is the only site where we have a proposed commercial precinct. So for the suburb as a whole, that opportunity has now departed if this gets approved. And that is what we elaborate on item 4. A local shop, a deli type shop would be much more appropriate for the suburb, and a community focal point, which would serve us much better as a suburb. As I said, item 5, I'll leave for your discretion, but that's a timeline, which is also repeated in the agenda documents as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Are there questions from panel members? Yes, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. 3 questions. First one on point 2, the traffic. I visited the site yesterday with Councillor Hill and Izzy to look at it, and I was there from 9:30 till 10:15. And I counted less than 10 vehicles in that time. So I question the busy road apart from certain hours. Point 2, the window. If you look
Questions, please, Councillor Jones.
The question is, from my experience visiting yesterday, there wasn't a traffic problem.
What's the question?
Well, the question is, they say there's a traffic problem, but on my visit yesterday, there was less than 10 vehicles in 45 minutes.
Yeah, but that, I would say that's off peak that you've been visiting the site. The coffee window is open in peak, 6:30 to, I think it's 8:30, and that's in which is peak hours. I think the point we're also making here is that if this gets approved, Burns Beach Residents Association is left with managing this issue, and we foresee significant debate on this ongoing as well, not just a traffic issue.
Okay, well, my second question is regarding the window. You said that's not going to be successful, but if you look at the window at a local tavern, which is just around the corner, that is a very successful coffee window.
Mr. Rasmussen, if it went to a local shop, do you think the traffic would be even greater?
No, because I think that'll more so serve the local community, and it'll be patrons on foot more than by car. Whereas I think the childcare centre, people come from neighbouring suburbs to drop off and pick off the kids. So I think as a local shop, no, I think it'll be people walking.
Further questions from panel members?
Yes, I've got a question, Mr. Rasmussen. You don't think that local residents will use the childcare centre?
Yes, I do. I think, as a matter of fact, we know that local people will, and that's the great thing about it as well, I suppose, that it is serving our community, absolutely. But I think there will be other people coming in from other part of the community, other suburbs to find a spot for their kids. So no, I think it will serve Burns Beach for sure. Again, it's just not the intended purpose of that site, and I think that's the challenge.
But the zoning does permit.
It does.
It does. So
Yeah.
I don't think there was. Do you think there was an intended purpose for that site specifically, or a range of uses?
We have always been in conversation with Pete and others, the developer, around a shopping type setup, a local shop, a small local shop. That was the intention, and a single story development. Now we have a 2-story development where a large play area facing residents on the western side, which we also see as an enormous challenge for the people that are living in the area that had no idea this was coming. So this has come as a complete surprise for local residents.
Councillor Jones, you had a question.
Yeah, the question is, given that an initial site, now 60% of it is residential. My question to Burns Beach Association is, do you think that 40% that's left would actually be effective in one or two shops when only 2 minutes away you have Aldi, Woolworths and Hungry Jack's, Hungry Farmer, plenty of shops nearby at Crumwine?
Yeah, other suburbs have a proven concept of a small local shop, which binds a community together. So I think so. I see that in Caramar, for instance, there's a small local shop that binds the community together. So I think, yeah, that'll be highly successful for the community.
Okay. Further questions of the presenter?
Have you been aware of any other proposal for a shop on this site which has been vacant for a long time? Has any operator expressed an interest in it? I mean, if they have, they would have possibly, if it was going to work, they would have done so by now. Don't you agree?
Yes, Roger, do you have? Sorry, can I refer to Roger De Silva, the secretary?
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. I'm just trying to find out whether there's been any history.
There has been.
It doesn't say in the report that there's been a history of applications or any proposals for a local shop on the site.
There has been, and it has been advertised as well. In accordance with that, unfortunately, I haven't got the detail.
Okay, thanks very much.
Councillor Pizzi, you have a question.
Rasmus, are you aware of any caveats that were on the land until 2021? It was my understanding that there were caveats that they couldn't use it until then, so it hasn't been put out, because my understanding is people did want to use that land for that, but they weren't allowed to until recently.
Yes. Again, I haven't got the detail with me here today, but yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll move on. Thank you, Mr. Rasmussen. Mr. Wahab.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the presiding members for allowing me to present this morning. My name is Rajai. I'm the owner of the property and the operator of the childcare. Sorry, first of all, can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. So I'm the owner and the operator of the childcare under the name of Panda Early Learning. So first of all, regarding the long day care supply and demand, as of June 1st, 2024, a gap maps analysis of the supply and demand for long day care facilities in Burns Beach and Iluka reveals a significant shortage. So there are only 87 places available for over 673 children aged 0 to 5. So this effectively means Burns Beach families are having no option but to find childcare outside of Burns Beach, which means increased commute time, leading to increased stress and less time for families to spend with their child. Families having to place their child in a childcare center outside Burns Beach may limit their opportunity to form friendship or social connections with local children, so potentially affecting their sense of community and belonging. So if other family members or friends occasionally help with childcare and out of suburb location, which can be less convenient for them as well. For this point, lastly, unlike the local school in Burns Beach, which offers only out of school hours care, OSH, primarily for school-aged children, which is 5 to 12 years old. Panda, the childcare operator, will operate a long day care, which is, so our service will basically be a full day care for children from birth to school age, 0 to 5, from early morning until late afternoon, which is all year round, including school holidays. The next point is the engagement side. So our experienced team ensures stability and builds trusting relationships with both children and parents, contributing to a confronting and supportive community environment. By actively engaging with the local community, we strengthen community ties and utilize community to support families. This can be achieved through our childcare and community gatherings at the local cafe for families to meet and greet each other, even for a short 10 minutes chat, which can create a significant feeling of belonging. The next point is the employment and training side. So Panda Early Learning significantly contributes to the community. Again, we are already operating on another location, so we have the experience, and that is by supporting families in their pursuit of employment opportunities and better work-life balance. We have a long-standing experience in supporting moms of children that attend the childcare, students from local schools, and the community by offering work experience opportunities. Additionally, we provide essential training and support for new and existing childcare educators, addressing a vital need within the community. In conclusion, Panda Early Learning Center brings a wealth of expertise to the community of Burns Beach, being a childcare provider that meets the assessment and rating of the Education and Regulatory Unit, ECRU. We will deliver safety, equality care, stability, and comprehensive community support to an area with limited childcare options. Our service significantly enhances the well-being and development of children, offering parents peace of mind. Therefore, we respectfully request the panel to approve our application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wahab. Are there questions of the presenter from panel members? Yes, Councillor Jones.
Yep. Thank you. 2 questions. First one, if you're successful, how many employees do you think you'd engage in the first year? And the second question is, if you were successful, just to get an idea of the supply demand, how soon from opening would you reckon you would fill the centre completely with maximum childcare?
Thanks for the question. That's actually a very good question. So we are licensed, or will be licensed, for 57 places. I'll start with the second question. So 57 places. I mean, based on our experience, the current center that we have, we're sitting at 65% after the 3rd year. And on a 57-place center, I would anticipate that to be around, say, 70% after the 3rd year. So that's 40 children out of the 57. So we will not be at full capacity, not at least for the next, I would say, 3 to 4 years. Again, it's hard to say, but that's roughly where we would expect. But again, this is a smaller center, so our calculation might have to be slightly different. The first question is how many staff members there will be. I need to just make a quick calculation here, so that, because obviously staffing is based on child ratio. Bear with me a second. So based on 65%, that's around 39 children. So we would be looking for 1, 2, okay, and then another further 2 educators, and then 1 educator, and then we have this the food coordinator. So we'll need 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 staff, 6 to 7, including the manager on site. That is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Further questions of the presenter? No, thank you, Mr. Wah. We'll move on to Carlo. Yeah.
Good morning, panel members, councillor, and staff members of the department. I'm representing the landowner on behalf in regards to this proposed development of a childcare centre and a restaurant cafe on the subject site. We've worked quite hard with the City of Joondalup to try and resolve a number of issues that have come out through the assessment process of this application. And through those discussions and referrals to DRPs, we've managed to do a series of amended plans to address a number of those issues. Those issues related to design, interface with the street, access, vehicle parking, and also the appearance of the building itself. So the ultimate design, or the design we're seeing today, has gone through a fairly decent process to get to the final design layout. The design itself is quite articulated on the corner and certainly has great connectivity and exposure to the streets, to both streets. So it certainly is a building that is almost like a landmark on that corner. Just in regards to the actual report itself, we're supportive of the City of Joondalup's recommendation for approval. As I mentioned already, that's as a result of the hard work that we've all done as a design team in conjunction with the city. And we've reviewed the conditions and raised no issues with those conditions. We've had a bit of backward and forward with the City of Joondalup in relation to some of those conditions, so that we can try and make sure that this has a smooth path through once, if it is approved. Just in regards to the planning framework, we all know that this is in the Burns Beach local structure plan area. It's a local shop precinct, which allows a number of uses which are permitted on this site, one being a childcare centre, other being a convenience store and a shop. Just in regards to some of the concerns raised by the local community in regards to, I guess, the activity of the childcare centre. The childcare centre only operates 5 days a week. It's closed by 6:30, so it has very little impact in regards to movements and noise in the evenings, and certainly it's closed on the weekends, so there's no disruptions during the weekends. If we looked at something like a convenience store could be open 24 hours a day, have refrigeration units running 24 hours a day for the entire year. So when you're looking at the types of uses and what use would have less of an impact in regards to noise and traffic, you would say the childcare centre would be the better option. In regards to traffic, which has been raised this morning, our consultant engineers have consulted heavily with the city, and the city's engineers are certainly supportive of the report prepared by our consultant. And certainly the conclusion is that the local road network can take the additional traffic generated by the childcare centre. Once again, the childcare centre only has peak periods during the morning and the evening. During the daytime, there's little movements. If we look at what a convenience store could do, you could have traffic movements 24/7, and people could be coming from other suburbs to attend the convenience store. In regards to the use itself, it does contribute well to the local community. It provides a service to the local community for mums and parents that are working. It allows for them to be able to place their children within the suburb without having to travel to another suburb to find places to put their children. In regards to the coffee window, it certainly does provide a valuable contribution to the local community. It allows for not only the parents and the staff of the childcare centre to use that coffee window, but it also allows people, the local community members, walking their dog in the park in the morning to pop over, grab a coffee and then continue walking their dog. So it's not just there to service the childcare centre. It is available for the local community. It will create that sort of vibe on that corner where people can mingle and meet. So we think that that is a valuable asset to the local community. We did look, and we do note that there was a number of public objections received during the public consultation period. And we did go through all of them. We made responses to all of them, and we made a number of changes to try and address some of the issues raised as part of those comments raised during that public consultation period. So we didn't just ignore them. We actually went through them and did our best to try and address them where we can and make amendments where we can. And that's a credit to the client, which was willing to explore making changes throughout the process to make sure that not only did we address the City of Joondalup's concerns through the assessment period, the design review panel's concerns, but also those concerns raised by the community. So we did work quite hard to try and address all of the issues. Obviously, we can't address everyone's issue. Things like land use, we can't address, as the land use is permitted on the site. So we understand that some of the local community do not want the childcare centre, understand that, but it is a use that can be permitted on the site. So to conclude, we have gone through a very vigorous process here. We are supportive of the city's recommendation. We have no issues with the conditions. The use is permitted on site, and we've addressed the planning framework. So to conclude, hopefully that the panel also sees merit in this application and resolves to approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Councillor Jones.
Thank you. I'd like clarification that on weekends when neighbours are at home enjoying their houses, is there absolutely no child activity on the Saturday and Sunday, no parties or anything like that to be arranged? Is that correct?
The application is for Monday to Friday. So at the moment, and as a condition is shown on the condition imposed by the City of Joondalup demonstrates that it's only Monday to Friday. So there is no operations on Saturday and Sunday. It is a closed.
Okay, and how does the coffee window operate on the weekends?
At this stage, it doesn't operate on the weekend. We've done a number of childcare centres where we have put coffee windows in. So they're under construction at the moment. So we're sort of testing the waters on how they actually work. So in the future, possibly there might be, if there's demand for it, there's the ability to reapply to the City of Joondalup to maybe change those hours of operation to allow weekend trade. Like I said, we're testing the water with childcare centres and coffee windows at the moment. And we sort of, at the moment, the best thing is to run it whilst the childcare centre is operating during the morning and afternoon period. If demand is there for something more, then the operator can review that and then reapply to the City of Joondalup. That will obviously be another application to the city so that city can assess it and make sure that we're not causing any issues with the local community. We're not falling foul of any of the planning framework.
Councillor Busy.
Okay, thank you.
I just ask you a question that came up earlier. Was there a caveat on the property that prevented building on it until recently?
That I cannot answer. I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
City officers might be able to assist.
Okay.
Maybe the city's officers might be able to answer that.
All right, thank you.
The exercise of discretion for the parking shortfall is partly based on a dwell time of 10 minutes for the dropping off and going. If those parents are going to then go and get a coffee, doesn't that affect the dwell time? And to what extent? That's obviously KCTT has done their report on this site, and it has gone through the City of Joondalup's engineering department, which don't have any issues. Potentially it could. However, you can remember dwell times are just an average. There could be parents that could only be there for 2 to 5 minutes. So when you're doing a dwell time, you sort of anticipate the worst case scenario, and 10 minutes is quite a long time to sign in the child and walk out. So most times you would expect a lesser dwell time. So the 10 minutes is obviously looking at a worst case scenario for a parent. Just in regards to parking, obviously there's on-street parking which is available in the area, and there's also parking across the road as well. So. Okay, thank you. Further questions of the presenter? Yes, Councillor Pizzi.
My understanding that the coffee shop parking was, it says in the application that the on-street parking is going to be used for that. So the 2 shortage bays and childcare centre, that's suggested that the on-street parking is used for as well. How does that work in minimising that shortage of parking when it's going to be used for the coffee shop?
I didn't mention that in my report that the on-street parking was specifically for the coffee shop. We made reference to on-street parking being available generally for the possible overflow from the childcare centre or users, similar to any on-street parking within any activity centre or commercial area. Those bays are available for the local community to use. So we're not banking on the fact that on-street parking is going to be used by our premises. We believe that at the end of the day, the amount of parking we're providing on site is more than adequate to cater the needs for the childcare centre. Remember, this is only a 57-place childcare centre. It's not a large childcare centre. Most childcare centres these days are usually 80 to 110 children. This is 57, it's quite small. So we're not anticipating any parking concerns.
Further questions?
I've got one. Some of the concerns were raised regarding the bin store abutting the residence next door. Was there any consideration given to flipping the location opposite to one of the bays on the other side?
We did look at that. There was concerns of we obviously had parking manoeuvrability issues and things like that on site that we had to deal with. We put the bin store towards the back of the property, and if you look at aerial photography, it's actually abutting a parapet wall to a garage for that resident. So being a non-habitable space, we felt that that's probably the better place to put it, as opposed to one of the original designs had it at the front on Grand Ocean entrance frontage, and that's probably not the best thing to put at the front of a property. I think landscaping is a better outcome than a bin store. So we did toy around with placing that bin store somewhere else on the site, and we felt that towards the back of the property is the better location. It's easier to access for truck removal for the waste collection, and also the parapet wall in the garage of the adjoining property. So we did look at alternatives.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you. Hello. We'll move to the city officers now. Catherine, do you have any particular comments you want to say, or just take questions?
Look, I'm happy to just take questions. I would just like to just raise an issue that we've identified with question 6, with condition 6 in the report, which relates to the hours of operation for the childcare premises. It says 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. That should have stated 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And if you look at condition 7, which relates to the cafe component, that is actually a 6:30 p.m. closing time.
All right, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Perhaps you might want to comment on Councillor Pizzey's questions around whether there was a caveat on the property, whether you know that or not.
Yeah, sure. Look, we are not aware of any caveats that have existed on the land that prevented use. That hasn't come up in our assessment.
Questions of the officers? Looks like you've got up slightly, Catherine. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to the item. I'm seeking a mover and a seconder, bearing in mind the slight change to condition 6, 6:30. So I'm seeking a mover for, yes, Councillor Pizzey. Okay, thank you, Councillor Pizzey, and a seconder, Councillor Jones.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it okay to make a statement?
You now.
All right, thank you. I have no doubt that the childcare service will offer a quality service to the community. But the question is it the best use of that commercial space for the Burns Beach community? It will service the outer suburbs, but using the only commercial space in Burns Beach to be a daycare will ensure that Burns Beach becomes a dormant suburb with no ability to activate amenities that reflect their needs more broadly. And usually when these kinds of residential childcare spaces work best is when there is an adjacent commercial space that further facilitates a childcare service with amenities, allowing a childcare facility to take the only viable commercial space detracts from the livability of the suburb. Every suburb should have the option and availability to buy the basics within walking distance. Allowing the only commercial space in Burns Beach to be taken by a childcare provider means that Burns Beach will become a stagnant, dormant suburb where the opportunity that is usually encouraged in newer suburbs for residents to access necessities within walking distance is not available to the residents. No local doctor or physio or bakery to support them. And in a time when government is encouraging everyone to be more environmentally friendly and thoughtful, Burns Beach residents are not able to walk to their local commercial precinct and purchase basic supplies. It is an inadequate activation that is not appropriately providing for the majority of Burns Beach community needs. We want to encourage people to socialise and shop locally for sustainability and the environment, and by utilising the only commercial space in Burns Beach for a childcare centre ensures there is no local shop or bakery to get basics like milk and bread, which means the locals need to travel across the busy Burns Beach Road to Iluka, or worse, access Marmion Avenue, creating not only environmental concerns that is not very sustainable, but also creates a safety issue for the residents and children and elderly that may want to shop locally. It is of concern that the outdoor playground is planned to be adjacent to residential homes.
Sorry, Councillor Pizzey, for interrupting, but you've moved to approve it with conditions.
I understand. Move a motion by not.
No,
Not
I'm putting the motion that's published first of all.
Okay.
If that doesn't get up, then an alternate motion can be put.
Okay, so after speaking to our team at City Joondalup, they said you can move a motion with the intention of not necessarily approving, but with not.
You can do, but my under the standing orders here, my task is to firstly present the published recommendation.
Okay.
Seek a mover and a seconder for that. So I guess you're not actually moving this one.
No, that's okay then. Is that okay to?
Yes. I'll seek a mover for, I'll go back to
Sorry,
Yep.
misunderstanding.
Councillor Jones, okay, and a seconder.
Just confirming you're withdrawing your.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And I'll get, you can speak against it during
No
this
problem.
debate. Okay.
Thank you.
Is it a seconder?
I'll second.
Yes, thank you. Jean Cortez, thank you. Councillor Jones, as the mover.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, I'd just like to say that the owner gave a realistic estimate of 39 children by the third year, with 6 to 7 staff being employed, which sounds like a successful business to me. And that is helping up to 80 local parents able to go to work in the community, which I think we need to support. I do think it's disappointing that site, with the other 60% area that's now residential, hasn't eventuated to be local shops. But it hasn't. 60% of it is already residential property. So to me, that the opportunity is gone. Also, 2 minutes away by car, you have got Aldi, Woolworths, and other grocery shops in Currambine, plus the Iluka IGA. So there's the area served. Similarly, if you look at Connolly suburb, they're in the same scenario. So it's not just Burns Beach. Connolly are a similar one. I also think Burns Beach is one of the most successful integrating communities through the Wednesday night markets, where it brings thousands of locals together. And they also have the Burns Beach foreshore that's going ahead. So I do think Burns Beach is not isolated. So I'm fully supportive of this, especially with the City of Joondalup amendment recommendations. And I think the alternative of having a busy shop with people coming from 7 o'clock till 10 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday with doors going and so forth, for local neighbours is more of an inconvenience than a childcare centre that's going to be absolutely dormant, empty, Saturday and Sunday when everybody's at home having leisure. So I fully support this.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cortez, a seconder.
Yes, look, I think it's demonstrated that the land use is appropriate under the local planning scheme and the Burns Beach local structure plan. If there was to be alternative uses, commercial uses, the areas substantially developed Burns Beach, and it would have eventuated by now if there was a demonstrable need for a cafe, for a shop of some sort. There is a demonstrable need or demand for local families for childcare centres, and this application is responding to that demand. The proposal has been through a building design review, and most of the review recommendations have been incorporated into the current plans that are before us to approve. There are some minor items that weren't included, but as the responsible authority report mentions, they can be captured through some more detailed design iterations that are still to be submitted to council. There have been a number of minor variations to standards for setbacks that have been noted and recommended for approval. Most, if not all of those, are located along the periphery of the site that does not abut the adjoining residential property. In regard to the traffic impact assessment, that's shown clearly that the number of vehicles that this use will generate will not impact unduly onto the local road system, which is built to carry several thousands of vehicles in and out of that area. The hours of operation are constrained, as are the number of staff that operate there, and as a result of that, as Councillor Jones mentioned, there'll be no activity on the site during the weekends and after hours. In order to reinforce the use of the site, there is an operations management plan recommended for preparation, and that will overcome ameliorate any of the local or off-site impacts that are likely to eventuate, that can be managed out through the operations management plan. I find the proposal for the local cafe window to be one which is appropriate. I've seen them operate with other uses, and the local community, I think, will probably be the main user of that, rather than parents who are picking up and dropping off kids as they move towards their place of employment. So all in all, I find that the application is sound. The assessment is quite comprehensive and supportive, and the conditions that are recommended will reinforce the operations of the proposed development. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor Fissy.
Thank you. Sorry about the misunderstanding.
That's all right.
I'm not going to repeat all that I said, because everyone, I'm sure, took that in. Just to reiterate, I think it's important that community can shop where they live, especially in local times when we've had COVID and we haven't been able to leave our local areas. You should have an ability to shop and utilise your necessities that you need within walking distance. I know my children do, and my family use our local shops, and Burns Beach are not able to do that. My other understanding is that there was a caveat on this land that prevented earlier commercial use to the site, and that there was interest in building a local upmarket sort of like food hub, which wasn't allowed to go ahead. So I'm not sure, no one else was aware of that, but I have been told of this. And there is a cafe that is going to be a coastal cafe just 300 metres down the street, and I think community will more likely walk 300 metres down the street on the beach where there is a cafe. So I don't think this cafe will service the local community in that sense, because there are coffee shops, and like Nigel Jones said, there are activating places around where they can get coffee and do those things, but I don't think this one will particularly service the community. I do understand that if there was a shop there, there would be issues with parking, but the concerns that the community have is that access to the daycare centre will be through the back on Brewery Lane, which will encourage people to park across the road. Walking children and small children across a busy road does have a safety concern when it's in peak times, when people are coming in from work and possibly dropping off to schools, but when that road is busier. And there was also the issue of the bins. I think having the bins up against a childcare centre is a more appropriate place than putting it up against a residential area, even if it is not a livable space. Smells and noise will come through to that residential place. I think it would be much nicer to be up against a commercial space. So that's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Other speakers?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Having regard for the responsible authority report that's been put to us, I am in support of the recommendation that has been made, and therefore the motion that has been moved. In consideration to this application, the proposed use is acceptable in relation to the planning framework that has been established and exists for the site. In relation to the development that is proposed, it has been considered in relation to its context and agree with a previous speaker in that while there has been some areas, minor variations requiring discretion, that they are acceptable, and I am of the view that through the assessment, the conditions that have been recommended and are in place, including hours of operation, are acceptable to ensure that the operation of the facility will ensure that it operates in a way that is compatible with its surrounds and doesn't lead to unacceptable impacts on the surrounding residential amenities. So on that basis, I'll be voting to support the motion accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Hick. Yes, I too will be supporting the recommendation. I don't need to repeat what's been said, but I'm very comfortable with the proposal, the way it will operate, and I think the conditions will address any of the minor concerns that exist in my view. I'm quite convinced that a local shop on that site would cause, or is likely to cause, more traffic impact than the childcare centre, given the hours of operation of this centre. So I'm fully supportive of the proposal. And back to you, Councillor Jones, for any rebuttal.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to close in saying that, you know, the site has been vacant many years. The adjacent site has got 3 residential properties on, which used to be commercial. So I don't think the market was out there for a shop to materialise, unfortunately. And what's happening here with this proposal is we're allowing 80 to 100 parents in the local community be able to go to work and drop their children off. It's also creating up to 7 employment opportunities. So I'm fully supportive of this motion.
Okay, I'll put this to the vote then. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors and staff. There was the Form 2 applications for this item and no SAP matters. So we'll move on to Part C, City of Swan.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you and welcome to Councillors Bowman and Catalano and Phil Russell from the city. Seek declaration of due consideration. Can members please indicate they are fully familiar with the material before them? Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move to the item. This is the proposed childcare premises in Park Street. Sorry. Okay, got a presentation from Mr. Watson. Okay.
Good morning, presiding member, panel members and city staff. I'm Josh Watson from Planning Solutions and I'll be speaking in support of the proposed 97th Place Childcare Centre in Henley Brook. I'm also joined by Matt Davies from Accord Property as well as Daniel Paniker from Western Environmental, who can be available to answer questions alongside myself if there's any technical matters brought up by the panel. Firstly, I'm very pleased to see an officer recommendation for approval. We've worked through a number of design matters with the city's officers, as well as receiving comprehensive feedback from the city's design review panel. It's clear that the design in front of the panel today has been through a rigorous design process, and I think it's going to ensure a positive outcome for this site. This design feedback has also resulted in a very attractive and functional facility at the same time, and that is also being very clearly articulated by the city's report. The proposed developments also had the necessary technical input from acoustic, traffic, bushfire to ensure it has had that rigorous assessment. The panel should have also received my presentation request. I won't repeat all these verbatim, but in short, I just wanted to convey our support for the conditions. We acknowledge that these conditions are appropriate and entirely necessary for this level of development, and we support those. We do request some minor changes. The first one being just the inclusion of the Metropolitan Region scheme, and the second change just to condition 3 to remove the limitation on staff numbers. So in relation to condition 3, we fully understand the intent and purpose of this condition and fully support that. The main purpose is just to control how big this facility is going to be in this location and for the community. We do think there is some unintended consequences by restricting the number of staff on premises. Due to typical operations of the childcare centre and shift arrangements, because this is open for 12 hours a day, people aren't working 12 hours a day generally in the childcare centre. The staff members will change throughout the day. So you might have staff start early in the morning and finish 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you have some people come during the day and then work to the end of the day. Those shift changes also have part-time staff and whatnot. So you do get a little bit of cross movement of staff throughout the day. Generally, that occurs during that middle period of the day, outside the morning peak and outside of the afternoon peak. So we just feel there's an unintended consequence there by just putting the limit of staff on that condition actually could impact the ability for the childcare centre to function appropriately. So I think the reason why the staff members is there is it's a car parking control. And we also note that condition 14 of the RAR has a comprehensive requirement for a car parking management plan and us detailing all this information on how it will function. And we're quite supportive of that, happy to do so. So I think with that condition in place and the detailed car parking analysis that supported our application clearly demonstrates that this site is appropriate and has the necessary car parking and operational management options, and that's going to form part of the development approval. Other than that, we're fully supportive and really hope that the panel support the application today with those minor changes that I've recommended to include the MRS in the introduction and the minor change to condition 3. As I said, I've got our bushfire consultant here and our client who we can answer any questions you need.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Watson. Questions from panel members? Councillor Bowman.
You notice you indicated that comprehensive design review.
Yep.
But I take I quote the what's in the design review panel is disappointingly reluctant to take on board the advice. Why didn't you address or feel the need to address the interface in particular with Park Street, which you would agree is the primary street frontage?
So we went through 3 design review panel meetings plus the chair reviewing the last set of plans. What we've got we're dealing with a number of competing aspects in terms of the design. We need to make a functional childcare centre, and one that Nido is going to be a tenant of this facility, and there's a number of requirements they have from their design requirements internally for their business and operational aspects. So where we in terms of Park Street, it was in relation to the walls that are along the boundary. Nido, as part of their arrangements for this site, have a number of visual permeability aspects to ensure that children, when they're playing in these outdoor areas, have the, I suppose, necessary privacy, and ensuring we have sight lines for staff when they're on site and whatnot. So as part of those arrangements, NIDO are very strong in saying, well, this is what we need. So we're balancing that. And also from the economics to ensure that the development is feasible. So where we landed with the design of the wall, we wanted to make a visually attractive wall, but we needed to balance that visual permeability inside. So we did work with the panel over that period, and there was a lot of push and pull, and the panel at the end really understood those other competing aspects in design and development, and that's reflected in them overall supporting this development.
Further question?
And it's a question, so I won't rebut. They support it because I question that. A 2.3 metre high solid fence, is that a good street interface, do you think?
I think with the visual articulation on that fence, we would actually, and we would probably like it to be less, in all honesty, but we are bound by the acoustic regulations, which we had a comprehensive report undertaken, which required that fence to be that high when we have the children in the play space. So we're dealing with other regulatory requirements. We feel that the overall design of that fence and the colour, materials used, and we're going to put appropriate landscaping in front of that fencing, which is a condition of approval to further do so. So we feel that on balance we are producing a good outcome there. When the subdivision was actually created, it probably would have just been a blank 1.8 metre high colour-bond fence, and that's all there. So I feel this is actually a better outcome than probably what the lot was intended to be.
Further questions?
The hours of operation, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Will that involve any staff or parents arriving before 6:30 a.m.?
You'd probably, so from 6:30 to 6:30 is when the site will operate. You're likely to have 1 to 2 staff members rock up 5 minutes before it starts and turn everything on. So that's what it will likely be, and then 6:30 p.m. is when it will close. The childcare operators are bound. They're not going to go home if a parent came late, but there is, with childcare operations, parents are actually penalised quite substantially if they go beyond their timing. So we don't anticipate there to be every day there's going to be people there past 6:30, because parents don't want to be charged $50 to $100 for that liberty. But I'm a realist as well. There might be the odd time that there's someone there a little bit later, but ultimately 6:30 to 6:30.
So would you have an issue if there was a condition placed on that no vehicles arrive before 6:30 a.m.?
Yes, because the operation of the facility is from 6:30 to 6:30, and the staff member will need to be there a couple of minutes before the operation starts. So the reason for vehicles restriction, you probably see that on the acoustic reporting, it's because of the nighttime modelling. But we've demonstrated that there is suitable car parking bays within the facility that can be used prior to that 7 a.m. to ensure compliance with noise regulation. So staff coming to open up the facility will maintain compliance with the noise regulations.
With parking, you talked about taking the limit off of the 17 because there's going to be a changeover. Could that not be dealt with from a scheduling point of view from the operator?
That's what we're proposing to do within that condition. So what happens is if you've got a staff member working till 1 o'clock, and you might have the next staff member come at 12:45 for their 1 o'clock shift, you have too many staff on site.
So it can be dealt with from a scheduling point of view?
It can be dealt with through that condition that includes the scheduling. But in all honesty, there's going to be a couple of staff extra to that 17 during that time, that crossover.
The waste in the applicant's report, it will be scheduled during the facility closure or outside the peak operating hours. So obviously, if during closure, it's going to be before 6:30 or after 6:30, which wouldn't be suitable being a residential area. So obviously it's going to be done during non-peak time, and this is to ensure the car park is optimal usage. But you just said now that that's when you're going to have the most need for the car park because you've got staff changeover. So can you just explain to me when it's likely that the rubbish will be picked up, if it's not before 6:30 a.m. and not after 6:30 p.m. and not during your peak crossover period?
So you would have seen also in the plans, we have an ingress and an egress movement. So a truck can actually park in the access aisle whilst the bins are being removed. So they don't actually need to be in a car parking bay. A 8-metre long truck can park there and move the bins out and have them removed. So that can occur. And this is where, with the private waste contractor, you can control that. So what we would have with this facility, we would be looking at between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock. That's when a waste truck can come and to the site and take away waste. Also, within the waste is actually guided by the noise regulations of local government. So they are restricted to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. 6 days a week. So they can actually come on a Saturday at the bins when there's no one there.
So it's only once a week pick up.
I've just given you the options during the middle of the day as well, between 10 and 3, which will be guided, and then on a Saturday. So there's a number of options there for the operator for waste.
Further questions of the present? Yes, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. So what is the final parking shortfall?
So the on-paper shortfall, I don't have the exact number on my top of my head. It was an 8-bay on-paper shortfall.
That's fine. So I just wanted to, so you've still got the only access in and out on which is on that street adjacent to the school. So that's all you've got still, just the one exit in and out.
Yeah. So we have an ingress and egress from that street, and then we also have an egress on the rear street. So there's options for people to then exit the site, but we have one ingress point for vehicles.
Oh, I couldn't see that on the sorry, I couldn't see that on your drawings. So where is that? Where is that on that street? Is it on the north side, is it?
On the site plan, we have the main crossover to Roddle Drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as the car park at the end of the car parking access aisle, there's a crossover to Eucalyptus Crescent.
Oh yeah, and is that intended to be, what's that intended to be used? The Eucalyptus Crescent one?
That's for vehicles exiting. So they can either choose to exit via Rockwaddle Drive or they can choose to exit via Eucalyptus Crescent. And this is where I was going back to the waste management aspect. A waste truck can actually come in and manoeuvre in the access aisle and exit, and come into the site in a forward gear and exit in forward gear.
Okay. And the fencing, what have you decided in the end? Is it gabled steel fencing or colorbond? What was it that was decided in the end?
No, we have this composite eco wall. We also have some opening.
Sorry, what's a composite eco wall? Can you explain?
It's just it's a slightly different material. It's sort of have the best. It's not a colorbond look material, but it's also it's meant for a better of a word. It's like a
compressed panel of some sort.
Yeah, compressed panel. That's probably the best way to put it. And what we have the ability to do with that is use different colours and paint it. And we also have sections of that fencing that has some clear panelling in there as well, so it's solid. So from an acoustic perspective, we're required to meet a certain density in the fencing, so to ensure that the noise retains on site.
And what have you decided regarding trees? Because there's quite a lot of issues with shade and also, like how it looks from the street.
Yeah, so our intent is actually, because we've got 4 street frontages basically, we're going to be incorporating a number of trees throughout the development. We've given some guidance on what that would look like with the plans so far, but there's also a landscaping plan requirement and place-based plan requirement that'll form conditions of that the city has put forward, which will give sort of further guidance on that. But our intent is actually to do a really good landscaping outcome here. I think you've probably seen a number of Nido childcare centres across Perth. They do a good outcome. And with the verge spaces that we do have with this development, our intent is to utilise that for low level as well as tree planting.
Yeah, but what have you decided was the question. What have you actually decided regarding the trees? That's the question I'm asking.
Species? Or
other than kicking it down the road to the next stage?
Yeah, we're still to go through further design of those,
Right.
what they're going to be. So when we progress to building and getting all these plans design done, that's when it will be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions of the presenter? No, thanks, Mr. Watson. Go to Mr. Russell. Phil, do you want to make any comments or just happy to take questions?
No, thank you. Questions only.
Pleasure. Are there questions? Mr. Russell. Phil, can you just comment on...
Councillor. She was on mute.
Yes, I'm on not mute now. I'd like to ask a question, Mr. Russell.
You go ahead, Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. Mr. Russell, what conditions can we put in here regarding trees and the future planting of trees at this particular site?
Councillor Catalano, I know your inclinations and I respect them, and as I've communicated to you previously, if the discretion exists within a condition for a landscaping plan, I know your preference for marri trees and other natives. I can certainly ensure, without having to articulate it specifically within the condition, that we will be encouraging the applicant to look at a palette of native species for that site. And if that includes one or two appropriately sited marri trees, I'm happy to require that of them through that condition.
Okay, just to confirm then, that doesn't need to be in a condition? That's already...
You don't need to specify the species, as I indicated. I'm aware of preferences, and I could ensure, as I have done with many developers over the trip, that they should be looking at native species and potentially, where appropriate, a couple of larger native trees.
Thank you. And just finally, have you had that discussion with the proponent about marri trees? And what have they
I roll that out to all our developers with these sorts of things. Obviously, as you know, in line with the city's broader strategic policies around revegetation, canopy protection, etc. So I am preaching that to developers. I don't think they should require much convincing of the importance of native revegetation or native trees in our urban environments. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So do you have any comment you want to make on the applicant's request in condition 3 to remove the staff numbers?
No, I'm happy with that, Mr. Presiding Member, given that the precise details as to the changeover times and the management of comings and goings in terms of parking will be addressed through condition 14, so I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Bowman.
Phil, the interface to Park Street, was there any discussions of an improved interface to Park Street instead of a 2.3 metre high solid fence?
Look, to be honest, I wasn't involved with this. My colleague was managing this particular application and I've had to fill in at late notice. I believe Mr. Watson has talked about some of the constraints. The alternative, of course, 6 to 1.5 dozen. The alternative would be that you had a car parking area to the front of Park Street, and you had the play area to the rear, and thereby you would have the fencing for the play area behind the building. But at this point, it is what it is. The design review panel has pointed out the obvious. I tend to concur. It is not an ideal scenario to have a solid fence to Park Street, although Mr. Watson does make a fair point that if this had been developed for residential lots, where you wouldn't have had direct road frontage access to Park Street. You would have had a side boundary fence quite likely, and you can have a side boundary fence up to 2.4 metres in height along that side. So you're probably getting the same sort of outcome visually presenting to Park Street that you would have, as has been noted, if it had been developed for residential purposes.
And my follow-up question, my understanding is the interface to Rockwattle Drive was the same issue, but there's now going to be see-through glass or infill panels to have some more visual permeability. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct, yes. So the salient thing around that is that the conditions around the fencing is only to specify the density of the material in terms of sound absorption. What material you use is up to you. If they want to use some perspex or some other material that provides a see-through, that's provided it meets the noise absorption criteria of the condition, you can do that.
Another question, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, then yes, you have a question of Mr. Watson.
Probably know the questions come. Is there ability to have on that fencing of Park Street some visual permeability like what's been proposed on Rockwattle Drive?
We do.
Street?
Yeah.
I read it as only it was Rockwattle.
So there's a couple panels further on Park Street that have visual permeability.
Right, thank you. Any further questions of Mr. Russell? No, thanks, Phil. Okay, we'll move to the item. There's a recommendation for approval with conditions. Is there a mover for the recommendation as published?
I'll move.
Mr. Colters, thank you. Seconder? Thank you. Mr. Hicks? Jane?
Yes, I think the application shows that the use is an appropriate use in the residential zone. It's located opposite a primary school. It's the play fields for the primary school. Its co-location is good in that regard. The juxtaposition of a school and childcare centre is well known, and it's appropriate given that parents will be dropping off kids at various age groups to schools and childcare centres. The use of the site is appropriate under the local planning scheme and the Henry structure plan. Childcare centres are permitted use and with discretion. The accompanying reports in the application show that it is compatible from a traffic point of view. Parking is appropriate. I'm supportive of the removal of the condition stipulating the number of staff on site at any one time. It's a fairly standard request from childcare centre operators throughout the metropolitan area. If the local authority has requested a condition stipulating that staff numbers are capped at any one time, because the same argument applies to all childcare centres during the day. In the non-peak areas where there is a changeover of staff, sometimes there's staff coming to prepare meals during the middle of the day for the kids, and that throw an extra one or two staff at that particular time for a small period of time. It's been subject to a design review panel, and whilst there are some comments made that the design review panel was not satisfied, I don't think there's I've very rarely seen a design review panel that's 100% happy with design of a childcare centre, but that's the same with shopping centres, schools, etc. We all have our opinion, subjective or objective opinions on design. And the applicants have made a number of attempts to comply with the design review panel's recommendations. Other considerations such as traffic impact on local roads, I think that the road system can easily handle the additional traffic. There's access restrictions onto the side street, so it's only a right turn out only to minimise the impact on future residential properties. The noise levels, parking levels, as I said, and the bushfire risk has been addressed as well. So all in all, the requirement to comply with the standards set for the site and childcare operation have been done, and I think the conditions that have been recommended will ensure compliance with the requirements of the regulatory authority. So I'm supportive of the proposal.
Thank you. I'll deal with the staff numbers as an amendment.
Yes.
So as the mover, you've moved this. I'll go to Mr. Hicks as the seconder, and he might like to suggest an amendment if that's what he wants.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Having regard to the application and the responsible authority report that has been to us for consideration, I am supportive of the recommendation that it has been put to us. I am mindful that the use is discretionary use, so we have an ability to consider that in relation to a broader set of objectives in relation to the residential zone. In relation to that, and particularly in terms of the development that is proposed, has been considered both by the applicant, the responsible authority, and through the design review panel. I note there has been some amendments to various considerations through that three-step process. And as noted by the previous speaker, while there are some items that would suggest require further consideration, I too would agree that they are acceptable, and particularly given the discussion in relation to the interface of Park Street. And I also am appreciative of the reconciliation of both acoustics, the requirements of the play area, but also the presentation to the street, and comfortable with the outcome that has been proposed there. The conditions are appropriate for the uses on the operation of the facility as proposed. And yes, I would also suggest to remove a motion in relation to the condition. Now I'll just jump back. That's condition 3. And would seek to move a motion in relation to the amendment of that condition.
So just to remove and 17 staff?
Yes, so it would then read, the childcare premises is limited to a maximum number of 97 children at any given time.
Okay, I'll just seek a seconder for that. Okay. Is there any discussion on that amendment? Yes.
I'm against that amendment, and simply because the parking isn't there as it is. This was a mechanism to ensure that there would be adequate parking. As we heard from the applicant, they can be dealt with from a scheduling point of view, so they can schedule around the 17 maximum. It's disappointing that there was no parking management plan provided. With this application, it has to be a condition. So we do not know what the impacts are to that parking. The 17 limit is something we have put on before through JDAP and through the City of Swan, and it gives confidence to the people in the area, albeit it hasn't been built yet, the residents, that there won't be excessive vehicles in the area. 17 parking bays a restriction of 17 can be dealt with, and I think it should stay on there for those reasons.
Thank you. Any further speakers on the amendment? No, I support the amendment. I think this is fairly typical of childcare centres or places where there are rosters. It's for a very short period of time. I don't think staff want to hang around once their shift is up. So I think it's just one of those quick changeover periods, and I don't think it would have an impact on the locality. So back to Mr. Hick to close the debate.
Thank you. Just in closing, I think this is an appropriate amendment to the condition on the basis that while it caps what is the key capacity consideration in relation to the operation of the facility, that the management of staff numbers can be addressed through the operational requirements established through other conditions, and don't see that would lead to an unmanageable impact in relation to parking and parking impacts on the site. So on that basis, yeah.
That closes the debate on the amendment. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. The floor's still with you, Mr. Hicks.
And that probably would close my.
Okay. Further speakers?
Can I just clarify something with the preamble? Are you adding in the?
I was going to do that as an amendment.
Thank you.
Yes. Councillor Catalano.
I'm speaking against.
Mm-hmm.
Are you right for that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I think the parking issues, the lack of parking, the fact that there's only limited, there's basically limited access in and out. The fencing's not up to what is expected in terms of the surrounding community, and the acoustics. I mean, there was that sort of conflict between acoustics and the visibility aspect of what's going on and how that impacts on the community, and so that's why we've got this solid fence. I mean, basically at the end of the day, all that speaks to the fact that this is not an appropriate use for the site. I mean, you just got to add all these things up, and you know, that it's just you can't really get away from these things. And I'm particularly concerned also about the traffic, because you're right next to a school. Ultimately, there's going to be a lot of traffic congestion there because you've got school use and you've got daycare use. We have this all the time in the city of Swan, where we've got these just effectively just down in Brabham is the same thing. You know, you go there at school closing time, and it's absolute chaos. And there's nothing now that the city can do about it except take people's complaints on a regular basis. So you know, this isn't it. You know, it can be approved, but it shouldn't be approved because of the problems that I've identified. And finally, I just wanted to say, I was really quite disappointed with the report that Planning Solutions gave, where they put in this example of this Nido childcare premises and wonderful trees and, you know, how gorgeous it's going to be. But unfortunately, this is not going to be great for the children there because there is no shade. It is really going to be a very hot and unpleasant environment for children for, I mean, many years, in fact, decades, while we're waiting for the trees to grow. You know, if indeed the trees are planted or they stay there. So that was page 10 and 11 of their report. And I thought, you know, in fact, it's rather misleading, in fact. And I was quite disappointed that that's the case. I mean, let's be honest about these things. So ultimately, no, I don't think it's a good use for the site. Thank you.
Councillor. Further speakers, Councillor Bowman.
Appropriate use of the site, I think it is. I have a slight issue with the car parking. Unlike the other speakers, when they talked about design review panel, yes, I agree there's always disagreements, but this is the first time I've seen the City of Swan design review panel say it's disappointed in the applicant. It's disappointed in the applicant's reluctance to take on board the advice. I don't think we're getting the best outcome in design, and hopefully the applicant can take that on board. However, I will be supporting it because it is appropriate use. There is no issues with traffic. It's probably one of the easier ones because the houses haven't been built yet. May have been a little bit more of a concern if the houses were there first. But I hope the applicant does take on board my concerns with how it's going to look to Park Street.
Councillor Bowman, I too will be supporting it, and I agree with Councillor Bowman. It is, I suppose, disappointing that the applicants haven't probably more seriously taken on board the design review panel's comments. But I think there are solutions there that can be worked through. And hopefully the fencing issue isn't an issue when it's finally designed. So, but I'm more than happy to support it. I would like to just move a motion to include the MRS, and I still call it a condition, but so it's new condition 1, and the rest are renumbered, which is the usual one, which is pursuant to clause 26 of the Metropolitan Region Scheme. This approval is deemed to be an approval under clause 24(1) of the Metropolitan Region Scheme. Seconded by Councillor Bowman. No comment. No. All those in favour? That's in favour. No. Against? Right. Okay. That's carried. Back to Mr. Coltaz as the mover to wind up the debate.
Yes, thanks. Having heard other comments, whilst I said that some of the issues regarding the design weren't addressed, I too think that the applicants should have done a little bit more in regard to the fencing. But given the explanation, I'm happy to take that on board. But I do counsel, as in ask the applicants to review perhaps a little bit of the fencing along Park Street to perhaps include a bit more visual permeability. Other than that, no further comment to make on it.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion as amended. All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Just moving on quickly. Item 4, there are no Form 2 applications. There are no SAT reconsiderations. Other business, we can note the SAT applications. Is there any general business? No. Thank you. I'll close the meeting at 11:04. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.